Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel? Her purse buzzed. We were at her aunt's funeral. There were 3 people speaking at the podium. The organist kept missing notes. I was sitting beside her, holding her hand, until she pulled it away to check the time, but it wasn't the time she was checking. Her phone was still in her coat pocket. What buzzed in her purse wasn't her phone, it was his. I recognized the laugh. I'd heard it before, once in our garage when I came home early, and she claimed she was on a Zoom call. It was too deep, too confident, too not mine. She closed the purse quickly like she was shoving a ghost back into a box. She looked over at me, eyes wide for a split second, then calm, like she'd practiced that look in the mirror. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. My stomach already knew what my brain didn't want to process. Later that night, she sat on our bed folding laundry, humming. I asked, "Whose phone was that today?" She blinked like she didn't understand English. I asked again. She said, "Nothing for a while." Then came the line that'll stay carved into my memory like a scar that never fades. "Maybe we should take a break." That's how she said it. No emotion. Like ordering soup. A break. After a year of me working double shifts so she could find herself. After I put my car up for sale to help cover her course in creative direction. After I missed my brother's wedding because she had a bad week. Now she wanted a break. I don't know what came over me, but I smiled. I actually smiled and said, "A break? No, we should divorce." She laughed at first, then froze when she realized I wasn't bluffing. Her mouth opened, closed. Then she asked, "Are you serious?" I nodded. My voice shook when I said, "Pack your things, and don't forget your second phone." I slept on the couch. She didn't sleep at all. The next morning, her purse was gone. But what she left behind was worse than anything she could have taken. The house felt different after she left. Not quieter, just heavier, like every room was holding its breath. I didn't touch her side of the bed. Her mug was still on the counter, half full of that cinnamon tea she liked. I didn't dump it. I couldn't. It felt like killing a memory that hadn't even dried yet. I kept telling myself I did the right thing, that I was strong for saying what I said, that I was better off. But my chest burned every time I passed the closet and saw the empty hangers swinging slightly, like they missed her more than I was willing to admit. 2 days after she left, I went into our bedroom to grab one of my old flannel shirts. I hadn't stepped in there since, and I swear I wasn't snooping. I just pulled open the sock drawer out of habit. That's when I saw it, a folded piece of pink paper tucked under her tights. At first, I thought it was a receipt, or one of those dumb affirmations she used to stick on the fridge. But no, it was a letter, handwritten, fresh ink. I still think about our night at the lake, the way you looked at me. No one's ever looked at me like that, not even him. I couldn't breathe. I sat down on the floor. That pink paper might as well have been a dagger. If I ever leave him, it won't be because of the fights or the distance. It'll be because with you, I feel alive. I read it twice, then a third time. My hands were shaking. There was no name, but I knew it wasn't mine. She never wrote like that for me, never said those things to me. And that night at the lake, I hadn't been to a lake in 2 years. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just sat there, silent, numb. Hours passed. I don't even remember moving, but at some point I found myself digging through every drawer she touched. And what I found next shattered the little denial I was still clinging to. A burner phone. It was hidden inside a hollowed out book she never once read. Battery dead, no SIM card. She planned this. All of it. The break, the exit, the disappearing act, even the phone. It wasn't impulsive, it was strategy. Like I was some obstacle she had to outsmart. And yet, I still missed her. I hated that. I hated that she took pieces of me without asking. And now, I didn't even know how to put myself back together. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch, staring into the dark, holding the letter in one hand and the hollow book in the other. I didn't know who the man was, but I was about to find out. And when I did, everything would change. I stared at the burner phone for hours before I even touched it. The casing was scratched, cheap, unremarkable, but it felt like it weighed 50 pounds in my hand, like it carried all the truths I wasn't sure I was ready for. I had to buy a charger. I stood in the electronics aisle shaking, trying to explain to the teenage employee that I just needed any cord that might fit. He asked what kind of phone it was. I lied and said it was a backup. He smiled and said, "Old school, huh?" I didn't smile back. When I got home, I plugged it in and waited. The screen flickered. A white battery icon blinked to life. 1%, then 2%. Then it turned on. No password, no lock screen, like it trusted whoever held it. There were no photos, no saved contacts, but there was a call log. I scrolled past a few unknown numbers. One stood out, the last outgoing call just yesterday. I felt my throat tighten. I pressed call. The line rang once, twice. Then a man's voice answered, casual, confident. "Hey, Alora, you're early." I didn't speak. I couldn't. There was silence, then a cautious, "Hello?" I hung up. My heart was beating so fast I thought I'd pass out. I dropped the phone like it was infected. He knew her name. He expected her. He was calm, not like someone having an affair, but like someone who'd already won. I sat there for nearly 10 minutes, staring at my reflection in the dark TV screen, trying to decide if I should call back. But I didn't. Instead, I opened the messages. They were all deleted, except one. Unknown. Still on for Friday, same hotel. That was it. One line. But it told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't gone to her aunt's funeral for me. She hadn't needed space. She'd needed time. Time to manage logistics, time to get her exit lined up cleanly, time to move him into the space I'd been too tired, too gentle, too trusting to defend. And yet, the part that disgusted me the most, I still wanted to believe maybe it wasn't what it looked like. That maybe she was confused or scared or broken in some way I could fix. I hated how easily I wanted to forgive someone who didn't even bother to lie properly. I charged the phone to full, took screenshots of every message and call log, and backed it all up. Then, I placed it back into the hollow book and slid it into the drawer. I had a plan now. If she thought I'd let this slide quietly, she was wrong. 3 days after the call, she came back. No warning, no message. Just the sound of her key twisting in the lock, like she still had the right. I was in the kitchen eating reheated spaghetti straight from the pot. I didn't even pretend to be surprised. She stepped inside, set her purse down, and gave me a quick glance, like she was assessing the damage, hoping I'd either be sobbing or gone. Instead, I said, "Want some?" and pointed to the food. She hesitated for a second, clearly thrown off by how calm I was. Then she shook her head and said, "I already ate." Of course she had. She went upstairs like everything was normal, like we were still married, like she hadn't vanished after dropping a grenade into my chest. I heard drawers open, the shower running, her humming. Humming. She was humming, while I sat there wondering how many times she'd told him she needed space, while wearing my old college hoodie. Part of me wanted to yell, to throw everything at the wall and tell her I knew. But I didn't, because screaming would give her closure. It would give her something to fight against. And I wasn't giving her that satisfaction. Instead, I did something worse. I acted like nothing had changed. That night, we lay in the same bed, her turned away, me staring at the ceiling, pretending to scroll through my phone while watching her reflection in the black TV screen. She didn't touch me. I didn't try. She thought she still had control. The next day, I waited for her to leave for work. Strategy meeting, she called it. And then I made copies of the letter, the screenshots from the burner phone, and a little something extra I'd been sitting on for weeks. Remember the pottery class? Turns out the instructor was a married man named Devin Hart. And Devin had a very active Instagram account, which he kept private, but his wife didn't. I'd found her weeks ago purely by accident, when she posted a group photo at a farmer's market. My wife was in the background, holding Devin's hand, both of them looking like they were on honeymoon. I printed that photo, blew it up in high resolution. I sealed everything, the letter, the screenshots, and the photo, into a bright red envelope and slid it into her work bag before she got home. She wouldn't find it until the next day, but when she did, I wanted her heart to pound like mine had when I found the letter in her drawer. This wasn't revenge, not yet. This was just the first crack in the mirror she'd built for herself. And once it shattered, she'd finally see what she really looked like. She didn't say anything that morning, not while sipping her coffee, not while putting on her shoes, not even when she walked past me to grab her purse. The red envelope was right there, sticking out just enough to be noticeable. She didn't blink, just gave me a quick, "Don't wait up," like she was the one doing me a favor by still living under the same roof. I watched the door close behind her, then checked the time. I figured I had about an hour before she'd open it, if she even noticed it right away. But I was wrong. It took 36 minutes. I know that because at exactly 8:12 a.m., I got a text from her. Nothing elaborate, just, "Did you go through my things?" My hands started shaking before I even unlocked my phone. I stared at that message for a good 10 minutes, thinking of 100 ways to respond. I almost said, "Yes, and you deserve worse." I almost said, "Call Devin and cry about it." But in the end, I wrote, "No, just return what I found." She didn't reply. The rest of the day dragged like I was underwater. Every sound felt muffled, every second stretched. I kept checking my phone, expecting an explosion, a confrontation, something. But there was nothing. Total radio silence until 6:44 p.m. I heard her heels outside before I heard the key in the lock. She stepped inside like she hadn't just had her entire secret life shoved into her face a few hours ago. Her expression was calm, too calm. But her eyes were different. You could see the panic hiding behind that fake indifference. She didn't take off her coat, didn't look at me. She said, "We need to talk." I nodded and sat down. She stood across the room like I was contagious. Then, with the audacity only cheaters seem to have, she opened with, "You're invading my privacy." I couldn't believe it. She wasn't even going to deny the affair. She was just mad I found out. I kept my voice steady. "I didn't plant the letter in your drawer. You did. I didn't write those texts or call him. You did. I just found what you left behind." She crossed her arms and replied, "That wasn't even recent. That was months ago." "Then why did he answer your call 2 days ago?" I shot back. She froze. Her mouth opened for a split second before she realized I'd trapped her. She knew I had more than the letter. She knew I had the logs, the photo, and still, she tried to lie. "It's not what it looks like." I laughed. I actually laughed. "That's good," what I said, "because what it looks like is disgusting." Then she switched tactics. She sat down, tried to soften her voice. "I just felt lost. You stopped noticing me." There it was, the blame shift. I stood up. "You handed me divorce papers the day you whispered, 'Let's take a break.' I just didn't know they were invisible." She didn't cry, she didn't scream. She just sat there, quiet, hollow. I walked upstairs. She didn't follow. And that silence once again said more than anything she could have tried to spin. I thought that once she got caught, she'd pack her things and go. I pictured some dramatic scene, her storming out, slamming the door, tears in her eyes, maybe even one last insult thrown over her shoulder. But instead, nothing happened. She stayed. Not just for a night or two. Days passed. She still used the same bathroom, ate from the same dishes, even folded the laundry, like we were just some tired couple trying to survive a rough patch. But it wasn't a rough patch. It was wreckage. And she was pretending like we were still standing on a foundation that hadn't already crumbled. I barely spoke to her. The silence between us had grown sharp, not heavy, not sad. Sharp, like glass, waiting to shatter under someone's bare feet. I avoided the kitchen when I knew she was in it. I left the room whenever she walked in. She started sleeping in the guest room, uninvited. I didn't ask her to. She just moved there on her own, like it was the natural next step in whatever twisted version of coping she was playing at. But the worst part, she started being nice. She asked if I wanted coffee. She complimented my shirt. She offered to pick up groceries like we hadn't both screamed without volume the night I told her I knew. I don't know if it was guilt or fear or just plain arrogance, but something in her made her believe we could slide back into being normal. Meanwhile, I couldn't get that photo out of my head. Her hand wrapped around his, their bodies leaned close like magnets that forgot what resistance meant. I'd memorized every angle of that image, every strand of hair blown across her face, while she smiled like she was finally free, and it wasn't with me. On the fifth night of her silence turned kindness, I found myself standing at the edge of the guest room door. It was open. She was lying there scrolling her phone, laughing at something, a real, genuine laugh I hadn't heard from her in over a year. I stood there watching her like she was a stranger who had stolen my wife's skin. She noticed me and sat up. "Milton, we need to talk." I didn't move. "We talked." "No," she said gently, like she was handling something fragile. "You talked." "I didn't explain." I laughed under my breath. "You don't need to explain cheating, Laura. It's not a complex concept." She stood up, took a step closer. "It wasn't about you. It wasn't that I didn't love you." "Then what was it?" I snapped. "A side hobby? Something to do between pottery class and destroying your husband?" Her lip trembled, and for a split second I saw the crack in her composure. "I didn't know how to tell you I was unhappy," she whispered. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just looked her dead in the eyes and said, "So you told someone else? With your body?" She didn't deny it. She just sat back down on the edge of the bed, defeated. That was the moment I realized she wasn't going to leave. Not unless I made her. And tomorrow I was going to make sure she had nowhere left to hide. The next morning I took a sick day. I didn't tell her. I let her think I'd already left for work, even closed the door behind me and stood silently in the garage for 10 minutes before slipping back in. She never heard me. She was in the shower, singing. I stood outside the bathroom door, staring at the handle, wondering how many times she'd hummed that same melody after meeting him. I hated that I could still recognize her voice in the middle of all this. I hated that my first instinct wasn't rage. It was heartbreak. When she left for her job, a marketing agency she used to brag about, before it became her excuse for everything, I waited 5 minutes, then walked straight into the guest room and opened her laptop. I hadn't planned to, I swear I hadn't. But something about the calm in her eyes lately felt calculated, like she wasn't scrambling to fix anything, just waiting me out. And that made me want to know what else she was hiding. It was open, no password. Maybe she thought I was too broken to snoop, or maybe she just didn't care anymore. At first, there was nothing. Regular work folders, a couple of saved recipes, a playlist titled Night Drives. But then I saw a folder tucked into the corner of her desktop. It was called Sparrow. She never mentioned anything about sparrows. I clicked it. Inside were videos, 4 of them, all dated over the past 6 months. I stared at the file names, just timestamps, no titles. My hands were shaking so badly I had to steady myself on the desk. I clicked the most recent one. The screen lit up. A cheap motel room, bad lighting, and then her laugh, clear, familiar. She was holding the phone selfie style and turned the camera to him. "Say hi," she whispered in the clip. "Hi, Alora's future," he said with a wink. I slammed the laptop shut so fast the screen flashed white. I stood up, heart thudding, mouth dry. I knew she'd cheated. I knew she'd lied. But seeing her smile like that with someone else, knowing she'd filmed it, saved it, named it, that shattered something in me that I'm not sure was ever supposed to break. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just stood there, numb. Then I packed a bag, not hers, mine. One hoodie, a change of clothes, my phone charger, the red envelope with the evidence I'd kept, and a note. Simple. Just one sentence written in thick black marker. "I hope he's enough." I left it on the bed she now called her own. Then I walked out, locked the door behind me, and dropped the key in the mailbox slot. But I didn't go far. Not yet. I needed to do one last thing before I disappeared. I needed to talk to his wife, because if anyone deserved the truth, it was her. I didn't expect her to answer the door. I stood there holding a plain manila envelope, sweaty palms, knees weak. I hadn't rehearsed what I'd say. I only had the evidence, the pictures, the letter, the screenshots. I figured she deserved the truth, even if I didn't know how to say it out loud. When the door opened, she didn't look surprised. Her name was Cambria. She had a baby on her hip, maybe 1 year old, and behind her, toys were scattered across the floor. a half-folded blanket over the arm of the couch. It smelled like cinnamon and diapers. She looked me up and down. "Milton?" she asked calmly. I froze. "How do you—" She nodded at the envelope. "He's careless. You're not the first." I didn't know what to say. I just handed her the folder. She didn't even flinch as she opened it right there on the porch. She leafed through the evidence slowly, then tucked the photos back inside and exhaled. Not like she was hurt, like she was free. "I've been waiting for a reason to leave," she whispered. "Thank you." I was stunned. No tears, no denial, just peace. And then, before I could even turn to leave, she handed me something. A business card. One side blank. On the other, an address and a date. Next weekend. A small local art gallery. "You should come," she said. "Not for me, for you." I didn't understand. She smiled again. "You'll get it." I left confused, spent the week bouncing between anger and numbness. I even threw out her tea, the one with cinnamon. The scent had clung to everything like a cruel inside joke. The night of the gallery opening, I almost didn't go, but I did. Dressed in the same jacket I wore to our anniversary dinner 2 years ago, the one where she told me I needed to grow a backbone. The gallery was small, warm, quiet. Local art, abstract shapes, soft music. In the back room, a new exhibit had just gone up. It was titled Letters Never Sent. One of the frames had a familiar pink background, her handwriting. The letter I found in the sock drawer. Beneath it was a new note, typed, not written. This letter broke a man and helped another one find himself. I stood there for a long time. Cambria found me by the water table. She didn't say anything. She just stood next to me, sipping wine, both of us watching strangers admire a piece of pain turned into art. I'm not saying I healed that night, but something started, a quiet kind of beginning. I moved out 2 weeks later, filed for divorce. No drama, no fight. She didn't contest. I adopted a dog from a local shelter, named her Sparrow. And some nights, I still think about that voice on the phone and the woman who hummed in the shower like nothing had happened. But most nights, I think about the woman who smiled when the truth arrived at her door and gave me mine back. That's the end of this story. If you've made it this far, thank you. Now tell us, what moment from this story shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories here on Reddit Confessions.